Dope is what flows in his fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in his fam's DNA.
What's good, everybody, and welcome to Dope Interviews, brought to you by the mighty 19 Media Group. I'm your host, Warren Shaw, and as always, please to make sure to rate, review, subscribe, do the whole nine. Stay tapped in with all the great content coming out of the 19 Media Group family. But you know me, man. I don't like to waste time. I got to get to the ish. I have an amazing guest with me. And now, listen, I don't even know. I checked out my man's profile, checked out his bio. He's got a lot of stuff going on. So some of these things
too much sometimes, too much.
They may still be relevant. He might have moved on to another thing. I don't even know. But my man, he's a senior manager of athlete relations at Players Tribune, creative director, athlete branding, host of multiple podcasts. It's the big homie, my guy, Rob Villanueva. Rob, what's good?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All is good, man. I'm enjoying. I'm feeling blessed. We all breathing, so it's an everyday blessing when you get a chance to breathe.
100%. So let's tap right in, man. Like, you are one of the movers and shakers, I think, at least for me, when it comes to creativity, branding, working with athletes, et cetera. When did you first become aware that's even a space that you can even operate and actually make a living out of?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'll give you a little bit of background on myself, and I'll try to make it short because every time I say that, it always ends up being 20 minutes. It'll start off with like when my mom was pregnant, but I'll fast forward a bit. So like the reason I got into sports was my brother got drafted to the NBA back in 2005. His name is Charlie Villanueva, and I got into, prior to that, I spent about 15 years in a career in IT and network engineering. When I was 18, I moved out of New York, went to Silicon Valley to pursue my career in computers. And I took telecommunications when I went to New York Institute of Technology. But I spent about 3 or 4 years in the Bay Area, living in San Francisco, during the start of the .com era. This is in the mid-'90s, so I'm aging myself now. But I spent a lot of years just working with computers and corporate networks, infrastructure, internet security. And then I moved over to digital marketing and web design and graphics. And then in 2005, when my brother got drafted, I was like, my last 9 to 5 was with the New York Daily News and in New York. And I was a network engineer there. And when he got drafted, I was like, yo, when you get drafted, we all got drafted. I was like, peace out. We all rich. But that wasn't quite the case. I started quickly realized that he had a career and he was getting the checks in his name, not me. But I became his right-hand man. And throughout his 11-year career, I was with him, living with him, became his middleman for his business ventures, his working with his agent, as a personal manager, if he needed a reservation for a restaurant, I'll help him with that. So I became like a jack of all trades for him, and still am to this day, even as he's retired. But in that journey, I met a lot of people, and that opened up a lot of doors. And I now work for the Players Tribune, been there for 5 years, which is on the sports media side. But the co-founder of the Players Tribune, along with Derek Jeter, which is a big name, of course, but like the one that had the backbone held together was a lady named Jamie Mesler. And Jamie Mesler, she was VP of marketing for Excel Sports. So she was a mentor of mine, and I looked up to her, and she was the one that put me on and recruited me to join the Players Tribune. So like there was a period where when he was getting drafted, and with my technical background, that I found myself applying a lot of tech strategies to his marketing strategies, where like, I'll give you an example where, Twitter wasn't around like that back in 2009, and like maybe Shaq and a few other big public figures were heavily active on Twitter. But for Charlie, I was like, yo, what would be really cool would be for during a halftime game for you to go and give a live update and give access to the fans behind closed doors of what's going on in the locker room. And they were playing Boston then, and this was when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks. So he sent out a tweet, and it's an iconic tweet just because
I remember
it happened at halftime. There was no rules about having phones in the locker room, even though all the players use their phones during the halftime show. But it just opened up the conversation of how much is too much, the level of access that athletes should be providing to their fans. It was a game changer, and it disrupted the space where it got to the point where the NBA had to institute a social media policy for players where they couldn't post 30 minutes prior or 30 minutes after the games. And it became like the Charlie Villanueva grandfather rule. To this day, it exists, but obviously there's a lot more flexibility because times have changed. Giving access to fans actually gives more credibility to the athletes, where they can build a true, authentic community because they're giving value to fans where they can't find it nowhere else but their social channels. So
my guy, hold on. So
yeah, there was a lot to compact there. Sorry.
No. I mean, we got to unpack it layer by layer. So you're to blame. You were like, you hollered at your brother, was like, hey, why don't we do this? And the whole rule change kind of formed out. Like that's crazy. Like it's I don't know, like social media infamy in some ways, but it's an amazing story. I want to roll a little bit about like what you said too. So, you said you had a mentor, and that's who got you into the Players Tribune a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how did the opportunity itself, like, okay, she comes to you and say, hey, we're going to be doing this situation. Just like, how do you just conceptualize that? Because at the time it really was, again, when it still is kind of like, it's an original thought.
Yeah, it's another great question. Like when it was happening early on, when the Players Tribune was just a concept, an idea, that the name wasn't even developed, I already had established the trust and the skill set where Jamie at the time, being an exec at Excel Sports, and at that level, she can trust me by having these conversations and pick my brain, and we will bounce back ideas. And so early on, I was aware that this was happening. And after Charlie's ended his career with the Dallas Mavericks, I ended up moving to Florida. And with my other brother, he's another Rob, we ended up starting a creative agency. And then we ended up partnering up our creative agency with a content studio that's down local in Florida, in Fort Lauderdale, in Fat Village. And while that was happening, Players Tribune was sizzling up, and it was making some noise. She had raised some round of funding, and they got the right key athletes to invest and become ambassadors, and they were just blowing up. And Derek Jeter at the time, the first piece that we did was in October 2014 when he announced his retirement, and then a bunch of pieces rolled after that. So like when full disclosure here, my girl got pregnant when I was living in Florida, and I wanted to come back to New York. And I was like, all right, shit just got real. Time to move back to New York. I need a steady job. And I remember Jamie telling me about the opportunity, and she was trying to recruit me. And that was the first person I called. I was like, I'm moving back to New York. I need a job. So she opened me, welcomed me with open arms. And I got moved over because of the relationships that I built with Charlie and his NBA career, with his teammates, guys he played against. We're from the Dominican Republic, so even though basketball is not the main sport, baseball is like treated like a religion, and we made baseball contact. So I had these guys like on the Rolodex here, and I instantly moved over to athlete relations and athlete marketing, and it's been a win-win ever since.
Man, so it's definitely one of my favorite all-time platforms. I think some of the stuff that's come out of it has been really, really amazing, and we're definitely going to move on from that as well too. But being so tapped into something that was so revolutionary, I gotta ask, what are some of your favorite memories, stories, projects from Players Tribune that you can recall?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. It's crazy that it's been 5 years. It's actually five years, April 1st. Okay. So I just hit that mark. Yeah, thank you. I just realized that. But the space moves so fast. It's crazy because back then, we were considered a disruptor in the media landscape, and now it's like it's nothing necessarily new, and the competition, the market's gotten a little more saturated, where there's companies like Uninterrupted, where they're kind of like athlete driven, athlete first, and there's a few others that's taken that initiative. So like now is like when I think about our competitors, is pretty much anybody that has a human interest. And the key to our success has always been, and I mentioned the relationships that I brought to the table, but it's always been the trust. That's been the secret in our DNA, where athletes not only do we go to them, but they come to us when they want to put something out, because like our rule of thumb is nothing gets published. Everything's off the record until you want it on the record. Nothing gets published without the athlete's approval. And that's different than traditional media, where traditional media would want to publish something and would switch up words around just for clickbait or, for headlines, where here, everything gets fully approved by the athlete or by their team. So there's a lot of patience here. And one of my favorite pieces, and it's one of my favorites just because, not because of the numbers it did or the impact it had, but more it was because of the athlete that leveraged the trust that we had. And this is a piece that we did with Ben Gordon. Ben Gordon, Ben Gordon, went through some hard times and, was battling with some mental health challenges. And, it was at one point, there was a summer that he was, every 2 weeks he was a headline at TMZ, just getting himself into trouble. And he was dealing with a lot of demons. And at the time when he was going through those different chapters in his life, and they were happening really fast, back to back, our editorial team was like, hey, maybe he wants to speak out on this. I already knew. I was like, no, he's still not ready for this. He's still trying to seek professional help to try to better himself and those around him. And we talked about it. And then there was one point months later, he came to me knowing that I worked at the Players Tribune, wanting to do the piece. I already knew, knowing his family, knowing who he was, that it still wasn't time. It literally took 2 years of back and forth. Are you ready? And just massaging the relationship and making sure when the timing is right to finally have him come in. He sat down in our studio thinking that it was going to be like an hour session. It lasted 6 hours. And he'll say it himself, it became like a therapy session for him. And it's cool that an athlete can come to us and treat us as their therapist and lay it all out. And, there were some things that we, even in his final piece, that we still didn't air just because we felt like we want to put the athlete first and want to protect them. And, to this day, we still keep in contact, and he's in a much better place, thank God. But it's those sort of, just the process that you just value as a human being, that forget about work, forget about who's reading it. Like, you came to me because you had something heavy in your heart and in your mind that you wanted to put out. And it took 2 years. That normally doesn't happen, but we were patient enough with each other that we knew when the time was right, it was right. And the type of response, once we published that, it was incredible. Like the type of impact that, like, no lie, that people that were on, and I think I'm comfortable saying this, that they were on suicide watch. Fans, readers that were suicide watch, that were changed their mind after reading and seeing this piece.
Rob, I mean, that's an amazing and deeply nuanced layered story, because most outlets, as you know, they're not going to turn something down. And I can be like, no, you're not ready. We're not ready to put that out there. We're all like clickbait, whatever is salacious and hot and trendy. We want it, and we want to be first to kind of report that. But to be able to take the athlete's just mental state and his overall well-being, his or her overall well-being, into account before actually getting it done. I mean, I commend you and your team over at the Players Tribune for taking that mantra, because it's integrity that we need more of that in the world, period. There's just not enough, man.
Yeah. And, it's, thank you for that. And it also, sometimes I don't want to use the word backfire, but sometimes because we put the athlete first, and the timeline is based on when they're ready. We've had situations where, there's a player, like, for example, Manny Ramirez, he's an icon to me. We're from the Dominican Republic. Like I said, I went to high school with him. I was a freshman. He was a senior. So we're from the same neighborhood. Like, our moms know each other. And he was going back to Boston, and we wanted to do an interview with him. And he's now a new man. He's found Christ. He's a reborn Christian, and he's built churches in the Dominican Republic. And, we thought the timing was right for him to just kind of share his story. And the Boston radio media, there was an outlet, I forget which one, that just kind of was talking negative of him. I don't even want to get into the details, but we're talking negative of him. And him being in Boston, it hurt him. It bothered him. And we had this whole room set up where it was like 6 o'clock, he's coming, and about 4:55, that piece dropped where they were bashing him. And it took him down. It took him to a place where he didn't even want to come out the room. Wow. And it just goes to show you the power of media for these athletes, even though you think they don't read it, they don't hear it, but they're human just like you and I. They hurt, they bleed the same way. So we had to cancel that shoot, and that it cost the company some money, and it cost us some time and resources. but we want the athlete to be at its best. Because I always like to say, like, here's an opportunity for you to be the director of your own movie. And now, here's the platform, speak. And if you're not ready or you're not in the right state of mind, then we'll revisit. And if it's going to cost us time and money and resources, then so be it. But to catch the athlete in the right state of mind is a priority for us.
Well, I think, you're to do stuff like that, as you alluded to, is so important. It just really is. That is the way. It's not about whatever. I mean, the clicks or whatever the case would be, making sure that you can continue to build the relationships and treat people the right way. And again, like I said, I commend you with that. You touched on the fact that obviously Players Tribune being one of the first innovators in the space and a lot of entries into this space since then. How, in essence, and are you still a part of trying to diversify, if you will, what the Players Tribune does? Like, kind of what's next? Can you give us a tease? So Players Tribune will kind of separate.
For sure. So we got acquired by a company called Minute Media last year. And Minute Media is known as a product and tech company. And they were headquarters out in Israel, but they're a global company. I mean, there's a couple of other properties like Fansided, 90 Min, and Mental Floss, a few other that's in the sports and entertainment space. But they know product, they know tech, and they know distribution space. One of their key products is Voltex, which is a media player that lives and can be licensed on different platforms, kind of like a content management system. But I bring all that up just because there's new versions of the site that are happening, that are evolving. And like we were acquired right before the pandemic hit. So it was like, all right, we're entering this new marriage. And then it was like, everybody go home. And everything's on pause. It was like, wait, we can't have this marriage? So it took, a year for us to really get acquainted. And I always say everything happens for good reason. And it was for good reason because it helped us understand just the global scale that we were working with, and the network and the members of every team, and how everyone plays a role. So on the tech side, there's some new things coming for sure. One of the things that I say, and especially when I bump into the young millennials or that next generation, the teeny boppers and that grassroots, they don't like to read, right? For you to give them a 2,000-word essay and want them to read an article, that could be a little challenging. So we've been experimenting with new content formats like animation and graphics, and being able to tell stories through photography and more short form snackable content. There's been some pieces we've done where through video where like, an athlete that's retiring or leaving a team, he'll send us like footage from like way back. The team sometimes sends us footage, and it was something that we'll make we can make a 2,000-word essay be just as impactful in a 2-minute video. So we've been tripling down on video, and also too, just like making the reading experience, the user experience on the website and on mobile, changing that up as well, making it easier to digest. I'm a fan of how some of the things that New York Times does, personally. So I think there's some things there that we are learning from, and seeing what our competitors are doing in this space. It's on the tech side is definitely an area that could use some room for improvements, and on the reading experience side, but also introducing new content formats and types for social, and more on the snackable stuff. How do we tell a story in 15 seconds? And that's still impactful. And some of it could just be as holding up a phone right in front of your face and letting the athlete speak. And some of it could be just maybe hearing his mom leave him a voicemail, and us capturing that voicemail, that audio, putting a graphic behind it. And it could probably more than likely have the same impact, because now everyone has a mom, right? So everyone can feel like that mom and son connection, or that mom and daughter connection.
Rob, you know how to tug at the heartstrings, my guy.
You got to hit those emotional trigger points.
We're talking with Rob Villanueva. Make sure you're following him on Twitter and Instagram at Creative by Rob. Rob, I got to ask, right? So your brother is a hooper, right? He made it. You made it. You carved out your own niche and way, so to speak. So I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Have you ever been starstruck? You know what I mean? Have you ever been in a situation
it still happens to this day. Man, so I've been starstruck, but also been starstruck heartbroken. So being from New York, I was a diehard New York Knicks fan. Not no more. They've broken my heart way too many times, so now I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan. But in that era,
oh, you switched to the dark side.
I
Okay,
switched
okay.
up. I switched up. I did it. I fell in the bandwagon. I made the switch, but it was only because of Patrick Ewing, Charles Oakley, some of that post-Nick era and how they were treated. Patrick Ewing is my all-time number 33. I grew up in apartment 33. Everything is for me is number 33, and it was because of Patrick Ewing. So Patrick Ewing, when Charlie was with the Mavericks, he was I think coaching with the Bobcats, and they were playing them. They had lost the game, but everyone knows how much of a diehard fan I am. And then Charlie was telling me, all my brothers and my boys, was like, yo, you got to go meet him. This is your shot. This is your shot. I'm like, nah, I'm not trying to be cool. Nah, I'm good. So we walk into the car, and then they're still trying to convince me, yo, you got to go meet him. And he's in the locker room, right? So we're in the car in the parking lot with the Players Park at. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. This is my only opportunity. Let me go back. So as I'm walking back, and as I'm walking back to his locker room, I see him from a distance walking towards me. I was like, oh shit, this is it. He's coming. So I pulled to the side. I'm like, all right, let me just wait till he passes by me. Let me act cool on my phone. He walks by me and me like, Mr. Ewing, can I get a picture with you? He gave me the Heisman, like, not right now. Not right now. Because, I mean, to his defense, they lost. But, man, my heart was broken. And, I go back and tell the guys, everybody's like, this dude. And we saw him again actually entering the bus while we was in the car. And Charlie calls him like, yeah, well, you want to take a picture with brothers? It's like, oh, man, I didn't know. And then he was like, you want to take a picture? And I was like, nah, I was already heartbroken. I was like, nah, I'm good.
You returned it. You blocked Patrick Ewing.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah, man. I mean, so Patrick Ewing, starstruck for sure. Michael Jordan. I seen him at an All-Star game at the Jordan brand class, Jordan event that they do, Jordan All-Star Weekend. Seen him a couple of times, and man, when he walks into the building, it's like an angel just landed. It's like the whole room follows wherever Jordan goes. MJ, I mean, who's not a fan? And it's funny because going back to these younger folks that are sports fan, there's a debate between MJ and LJ, right? LeBron, and I tell some of my boys when I was just at Cleveland All-Star Weekend, and in Cleveland All-Star Weekend, like that debate of Michael Jordan or LeBron James, who got the loudest cheers in Cleveland when the 75-year anniversary names were being called, and they said they left the best for last. Michael Jordan, man, like the whole building erupted, and I like to say Michael Jordan is the greatest player of all time, but I give LeBron the best player of all time, because when being the GOAT and being the greatest of all time, there's a global impact. I mean, the fact that my mom knew who Michael Jordan was and doesn't know who LeBron James is, or or people like in a third world country somewhere around the world might still know who Michael Jordan is. And it was just that global impact he had to the game. And that's, to me, what made him the greatest. But that's definitely on that I checked off on my bucket list as starstruck.
That's what's up. We're chatting again with Rob Villanueva. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Yes, sir.
Bonafide.
And we're back with my guy, Rob Villanueva. Make sure,
sir.
Again, you're following him on social media at Creative by Rob. So we're going to switch things up a little bit. We've had a little fun, you know what I mean? And we'll get back more to kind of the serious, the nitty-gritty, if you will, right? So You've seen the brand management space for a few years now, right? And I want to kind of ask you this question. How have you seen this space shift specifically for female athletes?
That depends on the level of their career, their professional status. There's been a dramatic shift at the collegiate level because of NIL, name, image, and likeness. And, these are athletes that are broke, and they're in the volleyball team, they're in the tennis team, they're in the softball team, they're in the basketball team. They're not nowhere getting the sort of attention that the men were getting prior to NIL. And this just opened up the floodgates because, I don't know if it's a gender thing or I don't know what it is, but I feel like women know how to use social media way better than men. And I honor women. I always say bet on women. It was one of our taglines for the Players Tribune, and rightfully so, because they're just ahead of the game. I was just at McDonald's All-American this past weekend, and the way the interview sessions went between men and the boys and the girls, dramatically different. They're light years ahead when it comes to
Right.
women. There's definitely been a dramatic shift because of these NIL opportunities that are presenting itself. And now just students in general, regardless of gender, are treating it as a business. I like to say athletes should treat themselves as, they used to be the same when Charlie was entering the NBA back in the mid 2000s. His agent would be like, you have to treat yourself as a corporation, and you're a business, and there's some truth to that. But now you have to treat yourself not as a corporation, but as a media company, and the way your name carries and the distribution channels you use to continue to build brand credibility, brand recognition, and brand positioning. Like when we're working with athletes, so we don't pay our athletes to do our articles. Our athletes come to us, we come to them. But when there's a brand involved, we get paid, athletes get paid. But when we're searching for athletes to fulfill a campaign, who would be a good fit for, whether it's 1-800-Flowers, I don't know, we're doing this thing with a jewelry company or an insurance company, whatever company it is that's submitting an RFP or request for proposal, because they want to put out the campaign and get their brand out there, and they're looking to tie an athlete, they have certain requirements, and social media is usually on top. It's not even about like how many followers you have, but are you engaging with your audience? Are you actively posting regularly on social media? And are you not only on Instagram, but are you on Twitter? Are there opportunities to use your YouTube channel? So being knows a lot of work, and sometimes athletes just want to focus on their particular sport, which is okay. You don't have to post 5 times a week, but maybe you have the income and the capital to be able to invest in your social media by getting a team to follow you, getting a team to manage your community, do your community management, where like they're replying, they're interacting with the brands you want to work with. That's another thing too. Like with athletes, you should be proactive on, if you're a fan of Reebok, if you're a fan of Rich Kid Clothing, if you're a fan of whoever it might be, whatever brand, whether it's fashion, jewelry, cars, interact with those brands. You'd be surprised who's watching. And then like there's influencer marketing platforms and directories that these brands use. So like they're searching for keywords. Like if you're an athlete that has over 100,000 followers that is verified and is in basketball, and you've used the keyword Mercedes-Benz in any of your posts or in your profile, guess what? You will come up as a hot lead, and you could potentially be there because you've interacted with these keywords. So there's systems in place on the back end that make you more you want to put yourself in a position to become more searchable and use keywords in your posts or interact with brands. And if you don't want to do that yourself, you can hire the team to do that. But it's a wise investment because that's the era that we're living at. This is a digital era. It's not going backwards. NFT is something that is also coming in hard and coming in new to the space. We all know about, some of us that in the sports landscape know about NBA Top Shot and the impact, the magnitude of impact that they've had in the sports world, and not only as a fan, but collectibles in general. But that's not going to go backwards. I mean, they have tons of money. There's other brands and companies doing similar things. So why not put yourself in a position to leverage that and monetize it?
So, you touched on something too, and, I want to try to keep my thoughts organized here as well too, because again, you're such a great resource and you have so much knowledge about kind of like what's happening in the space. I want to just correct me wrong. So are you even in the space now where you still, I don't know, have clients like specifically to you that you're advising them? So
I had a social media agency called Athlete Branding. So my full time now is the Players Tribune. That's all I do. But for pro bono, like I don't even do this. I do this for free. I want to consider myself more of an educator, especially being an OG. I'm 44 years old, turning 45 in 2 months. So it's like that's my way to give back. I constantly have conversations. I have talks, and I'm invited for especially now with this post-pandemic era. Everyone's so used to Zoom and video calls. I've done sessions with college students, high school students, even professional athletes, even retired athletes. And I'm doing that more and more nowadays. I've worked with a few athletes that are trying to figure out like what's not, I retired. I've been vacationing for the past year. When I'm sitting in my home, scratching my head, like trying to figure out what's next. And for some of them, they want to get into media or broadcasting, and they want to be in front of the camera. Some of them want to coach, but some of them want to open up business ventures and work on a number of new projects. And more than half the time, social media plays a big role in how well your project succeeds, especially you being a face of that particular project or investment or company or brand for that matter. So, being just well-versed in the features that these platforms offer. That's the other thing too, is like, it's hard to keep up with such a fast pace. Instagram just announced that they're changing their social feeds, which is like your home feed, which used to be based on an algorithm that is now they're going back to chronicle order, where back in the days, it used to be like the latest and greatest. If you posted 5 minutes ago and you're following that person and it's fresh on your feed, it's going to be on top of it. Like whatever was posted, latest and greatest. But people don't know that you have to go on top, the left side of the menu, click on the Instagram logo, and then you have a drop down that says following, which is the chronicle order. And then there's another one that has favorites. But that just means that the more you post, the more likely you'll end up compared to some of the other players that might be posting once a week or not taking it as serious. So you changing your frequency rate of how you post from once a week to 3 times a week, there's advantage to that instantly for you being more top of mind, and whether it's for brand opportunities or whether it's just to continue to grow and engage your existing audience and your fan base. If that's something that you're willing to put in the work for, and you're generally looking to interact with your current and potentially new fans, you have a short window. That basketball career on average is 3 to 5 years. A lot of people don't know that. There's an average lifetime of the NBA players, 3.5 or 4 years. So those that been there 10 years plus, you got to commend them. You got to salute them. But yeah, in that short window, you got to leverage the platform's features. You got to leverage the relationships that you have in the local team that you're at. You want to be the best friends with the social media guy, whoever the photographer is, so they can send you those game photos. You can post them right away, or you can hire a team to do that. But yeah, time is money, and there's a lot of the fact that this pace is moving quickly. You want to jump in early because there's always new things happening.
So you touched a little bit a little while ago too on the NFT, right? So obviously that's massive. That space has exploded, like you said, not going anywhere. Is there anything else along those, not necessarily along those lines, but do you see or already know something else that's kind of coming after the NFT right now? Because it's crazy. Like, I live in the Miami area, and I'm just like, what? Like, we're having NFT parties. It's a different world.
Miami has become the crypto capital of America right now. Right. And New York, LA, and a few other ones are trying to compete with it, but Miami's holding it down. Outside of NFT and what's happening with the crypto space, like I should say that's the crypto space is almost like proof of concept or proof of work of what's happening with the world, where we're going from institutions to individuals. And it's a shift that's happening where now the power is in your hands. And, social media speaks of that. But with social media, you're still under these platforms, right? You're still under Instagram. You're still on the Facebook. You're still on the Twitter. You don't necessarily have full control. If they go down, you're out, right? You can't do anything about it. So I'm seeing more and more of other platforms that give opportunities for the audience almost to own. You can almost say with emails, when you're building an email list, you own those emails. You can take those emails to any other clients. Okay. And the same thing is happening with SMS text messaging. There's community.com and a few other platforms out there that athletes and public figures and celebrities are now using, where they want to own that audience. So they're promoting, hey, text me at this number. They're acting like it's their phone number. Text me at this number. But when you text it, it's a DM automation that happens. It's a sequence of conditions and filtering that happens on how they can best reply to that person that's texting them. But once they reply to you, you lock in that number. So now whenever you want to either launch a basketball camp, launch a merch line, you want to promote a new gear, you want to, maybe you have a sponsorship opportunity where now, if I don't know, I go back to Mercedes-Benz, they want to do like a branded partnership with you, and you're telling them, hey, we can do sponsors on social. My Twitter audience is active, but I also have 15,000 numbers on my SMS list that you could also leverage and monetize. And that's another line sell item that you can now negotiate and add a couple more dollars into that negotiation contract when you're pitching sponsorship opportunities. So SMS is something that I think is going to continue to evolve. And also, like I like and I mentioned the individuals to institutes and the shift that is happening, but there's a lot more of that peer-to-peer. And this is what NFT is. NFT is a peer-to-peer. Like it's just like when you see a fan, an athlete, and you're a fan. If I see Patrick Ewing and I want his autograph, I know I have his autograph because I shared that moment with him. But NFT, the blockchain is, and at its core is it's a receipt. It's a record that authenticates that this actually happened from this person.
Right.
And if I bought something that was an NFT token, and it doesn't have to be art. NFTs. This is everyone's always caught up with JPEGs and MP4s, whether it's a motion video. But NFTs can be any sort of media. It could be a hard physical ticket. And those shifts are going to happen too. It's sporting events and concert and music events as well. But that moment where you have like, oh, I just met Patrick Ewing, even though it's meeting him in person, but that knowing that I just bought something from Patrick Ewing and that's his wallet, like it's a public wallet, and I bought something that he owned, you almost have that sort of same sort of feeling. Not quite the same, but it's sort of the same, where it's like, I just bought something from Patrick Ewing and I'm hyped. I didn't buy it from Topps. I didn't buy it from Upper Deck. I bought it from Patrick Ewing, and that's that peer-to-peer. So a lot of that is starting to happen all across industries, and that's the whole individual to institutes to individual shift that's happening across markets.
So, one of the things, again, I think that I've noticed about you and your social, again, like I said, you are rightfully so very brand conscious, right? But I think in the same way, like, you're just so willing to help and give information and kind of share that knowledge. So even what you've just shared with here, even in that last answer, you know what I mean? Like I said, I think, people, listeners, the watchers of the show, like, they should be getting their pen and paper out. Rob said, this is going to be next, or I need to be kind of cultivating my brand in this form or fashion. But where did that want to do what you do? Because like your podcast is hella informative. What you've given even me here today is hella informative. Just like, what makes you want to be that way about this space specifically?
Yeah, man. Honestly, the relationship that I have with my brothers. I have my sisters too, and my siblings and my family. But with my younger brothers, in particular with Charlie and my other brother Rob, early on, I was in love with technology and electronics at the age of 8. I was a kid around opening up the Walkman, the radio, the VCR, and like curious what language. Yeah. I was curious what was inside. My mom would bark at me like, "What you doing? You just broke out the TV and you just broke out this." But it was my curiosity, that led me into being in the computer world. But with my brothers, it was always like I wanted to be. You always want to look out for your brother's best interests, and as a big brother especially. And I felt that the more and more I started meeting younger athletes, younger professionals, younger creators, and it's like I didn't have that. I have an older brother, and he was caught up in his own little world, but he wasn't that sort of influence to me of the things that I liked, or the things that I felt like I should have known, whether as a band, whether in general in life, whether it's talking about our health, our well-being, or our mental state, just all those things. I credit it to me and Google, and me and YouTube, and me and spending time on continuing my education through these online educational platforms. So I take what I soak in and apply it to real world practical matters that could be useful for some of these young athletes. But it's credit to the relationship that I have with my younger brothers, because I wanted to be an example to them, and I hope to be an example to this next rising star of athletes.
Rob, again, I'm flabbergasted. I knew when I chatted with you that it was going to be a whole vibe. I didn't know I was going to get, tips for my future, things that I can utilize to maybe help my brand, talk with my people, talk with my family as well too. Before I let you get out of here, man, just anything that you have coming up that we should be on the lookout for, out of the camp of Rob Villanueva.
Yeah, something that's super exciting. There's a little bit of a sneak peek here, but my brother Charlie, he has I was going to say rare, but it's not really that rare. But he has a autoimmune skin disorder called alopecia. A lot of people know about alopecia because of the recent 5 fingers that went to the face. But obviously that moment with Will Smith and Chris Rock, all jokes aside, like, when Charlie and I was talking about it, I was like, people have different opinions and people can be on both sides. But the real winner here was alopecia, because now people that never heard that word,
True,
all of a sudden are being aware of alopecia. And Charlie's been a huge advocate of alopecia throughout his 11-year career, and also in his college career when he was at UConn. And he's been the spokesperson for the National Alopecia Areata Foundation. And we used to do these programs where we would invite kids to join the pregame and get a chance to do a meet and greet, exclusively a group of kids and their parents. And we did that like throughout his 11 years. So we've met like thousands of kids where he was carrying them at 5 years old, and now they're grown adults that he can have a drink with, which is crazy. But that's a community that's really underserved, because the condition is, they say medically is non-life-threatening. Alopecia areata is, but people that have alopecia areata have committed suicide. There was a little girl, 12-year-old, that committed suicide because she was being teased because she had a bald head. And for you to say, for doctors to say that's non-life-threatening, it just goes to show you that people can like die from this. So from the anti-bullying causes and just creating more awareness, like now that Charlie's retired from basketball, we wanted to figure out how to do more. So we're working on a super dope project, NFT project, that it's more of an intellectual property. We pretty much want to create the X-Men of alopecians. So it's like people that have alopecia use that as a superpower. And it has a little bit of Japanese animation flavor to it. So it's still, this is like an exclusive drop right here, because we're making the announcement on middle of April 11th. I don't know when this will air, but April 11th, May 11th, and June 11th. The 11th of the next 3 months are going to be some major drops that we're going to be announcing soon.
My guy, again, what you, your brother, your family are doing, just continued success in that. Don't let anybody tell you different. Keep up this level of integrity. Keep up this level of just humbleness and just great stuff that you're putting out there. Big time stuff from my guy Rob Villanueva.
Appreciate you, bro.
My new homie right there.
All day, every day. Yes, sir.
Make sure you follow at Creative by Rob. That is all the time we have for today. It's been another amazing conversation. Again, as always, make sure you stay tapped in with 19 Media Group. This has been another dope interview with your boy Warren Shaw, and we're out.
Peace.
Together we stand, divided we never. The vision is one, striving for the better. Working as a team, working toward a dream. It's not even work when the team is the dream. On a united front, we got our own back. A band of brothers to counteract any attack. One heart in fact, forget what the blood say. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. So let's do it for the love, give to the max. Listen to opinion, but react to facts. And remember that together with a shh, but separate, just pieces of it. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA. Dope is what flows in this fam's DNA.
Family represent like a tree with names on it. We're free, no chains on it. Relieved, the pain's gone, I can see. We come together like questions on the quiz. Mojo Flow and Viz, man, you know what it is. And if ignorance is bliss, you're gonna hate this lesson. Organized intellect like a tropical depression. My symbol is the cross, a mic and ghost peppers. Cause I'm just a black sheep growing up to be a shepherd. Moonlighting as a weapon to protect the children. Every brother is a father, dynasties we're building. Max, J and K, Bay, and Isaiah, next level of the family foundation, understand me?